Mm. Oh, yeah. Hello and welcome to the Crypto Mining Show, your one-stop shop for all cryptocurrency news from the perspective of a cryptocurrency miner. I go by Matthew in real life and Blind Run on the internet. And today we're going to be discussing 5 predictions according to CoinDesk for cryptocurrency in the year 2023, seeing as we'll kind of be hitting that weird spot where next week's live stream is going to essentially come right before the end of the year. I guess we'll go ahead and get the end of the year predictions out of the way, and then we'll celebrate the new year then. Of course, this weekend is Christmas, so a very happy holiday to each and every one of you fellow cryptocurrency miners out there, and I appreciate for all the support that you continue to show me throughout the bear market. And if you're interested in an after party, there will be one this evening. You can check the pinned comment in the live chat to find that. And without further ado, let's talk about today's sponsor, and we are just going to be talking about it straight up and bluntly. It's going to be BT Miners. Yes, BT Miners right now is having their end of the year sale, and there's only 2 hours and 28 minutes left to purchase your cryptocurrency miners, specifically ASIC miners, and you can utilize the promo code SOAT for an additional discount. That being said, right now what you got going on are 2 different end of the year sales. One is going to be essentially a pair or a grouping of 3 that you can choose random ones from. We'll go over those near the end of the video. And then there's another one that comes with hosting at 9 cents a kilowatt hour. So if you're having issues with, your power consumption like yours truly, and you're looking for hosting, this may be an option. Of course, at 9 cents a kilowatt hour, you're probably going to want some L7s, cranking away there. So go ahead and check out the link for this down in the description below. And thank you, BT Miners, for sponsoring this video and this live stream. And I hope that you guys will go support the sponsors that support me. Speaking of which, I do want to shout out pretty much all the sponsors that are down in the affiliate links down below, because they are all, basically sponsors over the past couple of years that have helped support me. Of course, we're wearing a Coastal Crypto shirt. If you're looking for used ASIC miners for a decent price, you can check out Coastal Crypto. And of course, down there, we also have Octo Miner, which you should go check out if you're looking for server style cases, or even, of course, their latest product, which is going to be their heater, which of course Red Panda Mining did the launch special for that. If you guys want to go check out that, definitely check out his channel for that one. And pretty much that's it. As far as crypto.com, they kind of were supposed to be a sponsor through May of next year. However, that didn't work out. So there you go. Let's go ahead and get into the first topic of the day, though, which is going to be the top 5, or not the top 5, which is going to be 5 digital economy predictions for the year 2023. Chili is in the chat, by the way. So make sure right behind us, guys, all of the beautiful Octo miners right behind me here. So if you're interested in those, go check them out. And Chili can probably get you guys hooked up with information on the latest products surrounding, of course, the good old ASICs. Let's get into this, though. All right, 2023 is the year crypto will have to grow up and clean up its act. Here are the predictions regarding the future of NFTs, the Metaverse, CBDCs, and institutional investments. Now, I'm going to give you guys one of my predictions for the year 2023. I predict that the UK and the US will roll out test nets, if not full-on releases of central bank digital currencies. It will primarily focus around, of course, government-funded programs like Medicare, tax returns, etc., kind of forcing the lower class and lower middle class, and probably the middle class, into participating within them. Now, we could say Canada would participate within this as well, but, they've kind of just gone down the, suicide path instead of the taking care of people medically path. Okay, jokes aside, let's get into the predictions from CoinDesk. If the year 2021 was the year of cryptocurrency, then 2022 was the year it collapsed. Millions were made and lost by crypto investors while crypto companies were built and folded. With 2023 right around the corner, one thing is clear. The roaring 20s era of 2022 crypto parties and the market's overall irrational exuberance is over. 2023 is the year crypto will have to grow up and clean up its act. Ahead, here are 5 predictions for the next year in the digital economy. Prediction number 1, natural selection of the crypto ecosystem. Now, to be completely fair, is this not completely obvious? Every single cycle for the halving cycle, after the little pump and then it dumps, what happens? You start to see all of the failed projects and failed cryptocurrency YouTubers, etc., like myself, begin to get day jobs and quit the cryptocurrency scene. Hence, of course, what we've done over here. And that is pretty much how this is going to shape up. The individuals that are not able to survive this will fall away to the wayside, and the projects that, can't handle the pressure will completely fold. And another thing that's going to happen, obviously, as we see it, is big, large cryptocurrency miners are even beginning to fold. We're going to be talking about that here in a little bit as well. But if you didn't have a good cash flow plan for the bear market in cryptocurrency, well, obviously you're going to get flushed out of the system pretty hard. Natural selection of the digital asset ecosystem will be a powerful force in 2023, and that's a positive development. The good companies will get stronger and the bad ones will fade away or be restructured, leaving a better positioned market for the future. And I do agree with that. We are already seeing Darwinism sweep through the market with only the well-managed, well-intended companies surviving. While there will be more shoes to drop as we head into 2023, this process is needed and very healthy for the future growth of the digital assets ecosystem. And I agree with that as well. The reshaping and rebuilding of the industry's reputation and the way it does business will continue to be driven by institutional investors requiring more controls, risk management, transparency, and reality checks. I completely disagree with this. To the point to where I think the viability of cryptocurrency will lean in complete opposition to institutional investors, complete opposition to your standard traditional financial markets, etc., as we start to see the collapse of fiat systems, starting with, of course, the weakening of the US dollar, which we'll be talking about in the after party. So make sure that you are headed on over to that through the linked chat, because we're going to be talking about basically the weakening of the US dollar as it compares for a reserve currency, and that is going to be what happens. And the reserve currency will shift into either something that is run by large centralized nation states working together, such as Saudi Arabia, Russia, Britain, sure, China, all of those, right? Or we'll end up in a position where individuals start opting out of this particular system. And I think that institutional investors will push money into cryptocurrency in general, but that is not the reason why we are sitting here today talking about Bitcoin in a bear market still. We're sitting here because we are interested in the principles and the fundamentals surrounding Bitcoin and what it provides to the individual, not what it provides to institutional investors. While we're on the subject of institutional investors, they go on to say, firms like SoftBank, Sequoia, and Temasek, just to name a few, have some sobering up to do as well. This maturation and sobering up process will weed some of the fraud, incompetence, and lack of experience out of the industry, and that's a good thing. The companies left standing will be stronger for it, and the industry will be better positioned to begin thriving once again. Prediction number 2. Regulation everywhere but here. And that says the US, right? So this is interesting. Countries across the globe will make critical decisions on crypto regulations in 2023, while in the US, no meaningful regulatory movements will occur due to legislative dysfunction. I don't know that I really agree with that, as if the U.S. legislative dysfunction is much worse than like Britain or Canada, etc. I think they all got the gunk and all got the red tape, unless, of course, you're looking at something like China for comparison, where they can pass things quite quickly, thanks to the CCP, and maybe Russia, right? I don't see that. Also, if we're being completely fair, like we read about last week, as it pertains to Russia and regulation over cryptocurrency, they're pretty much removing all of the regulation surrounding cryptocurrency, specifically to allow people to function within some sort of economy and some sort of commerce without the interference of a government, so that they don't end up in a position where they're hurting, of course, the oligarchs financially. So it's gotten to be, like, obviously from the perspective of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, a very viable and like front stage kind of movement for international exchange, right? And that is going to be, obviously, to a certain extent, aimed at bypassing, of course, things like sanctions. And we'll just have to see how that plays out at the end of the day. One thing we know for certain that will happen, they say on CoinDesk article, or continue on, is in 2023, as it relates to crypto regulation in the US, is infighting, and lots of it. From the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission to the Democrats and the Republicans. And let's not forget the DeFi versus the traditional finance crew. 2023 will be as entertaining as WWE, so grab the popcorn. However, no one benefits from stalemates, from unresolved power struggles, and this coming year won't be any different in the digital economy. While one would like to hold out hope that a new Congress can accomplish meaningful crypto legislation, the likelihood of it happening is as high as Sam Bankman-Fried keeping his Bahamian penthouse. Whoa! I'm getting tongue-tied there on that one. But while the U.S. squabbles and debates, countries around the world are making progress, and 2023 should see many of these regulatory regimes take shape. The European Union is taking a massive step early in 2023 to vote and implement the Markets in Crypto Asset Regulation, which lays out a framework to regulate both the issuance of cryptocurrencies and assets and transactions, i.e. trading, investments, and payments. Specifically, the MICA or MiCA bill contains several provisions regulators say are necessary to, quote, rein in the wild west of the crypto world. Meanwhile, Asian regulators are each taking on crypto guardrails differently. Hong Kong's goal for 2023 is to increase retail access to crypto, which requires a specific regulatory strategy to support those objectives. In sharp contrast, nearby Singapore has signaled that it will tighten regulations after big losses this year for investors, while South Korea, still dealing with the aftermath of the collapse of Terra, will focus solely on enforcement. On the other hand, India, somewhat uniquely in the region, is using tax policy to drive behavior. Basically, yeah, if you're in India, good freaking luck getting your money out of crypto before it's just absolutely drained by the government. It is a dang tragedy. It is pure theft and it's pure thievery. It's mob rule, and I know to a certain extent, all nation states are the same, right? It's we make the rules to get ourselves more money game. That is what it is. Politicians offer no real world actual skill sets that provide some sort of value to the society. All they do is structure rules in a manner which enriches their pockets and burdens the people with actual skill. The glitz and glamour of the metaverse and non-fungible tokens may be tarnishing, but the practical, versatile, and inevitable uses for both will be much clearer in 2023. The recent narrative about the metaverse's demise, partly based on Meta Platform's dismal financial outlook, are premature. The same way the exuberance about its immediate relevance and market adoption a year ago was. I don't really actually even when I completely disagree with this narrative from CoinDesk in general. So first of all, from the very, very beginning, I considered the metaverse to be something that no one really wanted to participate in. Why is that? Well, I'm a gamer by heart. Like, I grew up gaming. I played video games all the way up until this very day. I've started out playing video games on PC, and I continue to play video games on PC almost on a daily basis, if I can get to it, right? And there has never been a time in the metaverse where I was like, oh, that looks like a cool game. Just never. That's not a thing that happens, right? And why is it? Because most of them are cash grabs that are really poorly done, right? This is really actually no different than the entire gaming industry as a whole, as it continued to fall down that deep, deep, dark hole of money-grubbing microtransactions that destroyed an entire industry and moved into the mobile sector, which destroyed it even more. And then you want to add blockchain to it. No, thank you. No, thank you. I don't want it as a gamer, so I didn't see this taking off in the first place, and there's no good products to back it up. That's the plain fact of the matter. Is there potential for this in the future to provide some sort of digital rights over games? Right? This is where I could see it working, but that would align more along the NFT process, not actual metaverse within the game world type thing. But NFTs I could see giving some sort of digital right access to video games. That would be important, because as we see with digital rights access across the board, if you purchase something like, let's say, on the Amazon Web Store or even on Steam, if Steam decides that they are no longer going to hold that game within the download library, well, tough crap. You don't get access to your games anymore. So if you could do some sort of P2P file sharing system that validated your ownership of that particular title on the blockchain, then I'm all for that. But if you want me to pretend that the metaverse is fun or interesting, no, it's not going to happen. I'm sorry. No one should be looking at Meta and the overall building of the metaverse infrastructure as a 2023 or 2024 project. I agree. The truth is, the metaverse is inevitable. I don't know that I agree with that, but let's continue on. I suppose in a world where you have essentially like, Ready Player One, inevitability, I guess, right? Does that mean that it will be fun? I don't know, right? Like, it's an odd thing to really think about, but like, do you really have fun playing a majority of those games with like microtransactions in them? Or does it just become like a dopamine rush? With that said, 2023 will mark the beginning of how we perceive metaverse experiences. New use cases in enterprise, healthcare, education, and more will bring practical utility of smaller doses of the metaverse to our collective attention, even in our daily lives. Advances in identity technology, along with AR/VR devices like Apple's XR project, will come into focus as well in 2023. The same is true about NFTs. See, here's the problem that they have, and this is the problem I think that the metaverse always has, because I even did it, right? We're talking about the metaverse. I shift into real world applications for NFTs. They start to talk about the metaverse. They say, oh, the metaverse is relevant, but they shift into technologies surrounding NFTs. It's not the metaverse that we care about. It's digital rights management that we care about. Once again, it's not the metaverse or any particular metaverse that we care about. It's digital rights management that we care about, right? A peer-to-peer removal of a third party managing your digital rights or your ownership over digital items that is relevant in this discussion. Nothing else really is at this point. We need to figure that piece of the puzzle out. And I think that's the real big one here in the near future that needs to get solved, that will also obviously push the adoption of cryptocurrency further, right? So they kind of just go on to talk about NFTs, right? The funnel of innovative ways to leverage NFTs will continue to widen in 2023. Sure, yeah, that's going to happen. From supply chain and logistics to healthcare to real estate and retail, NFTs will have a more pervasive and permanent role in digitizing operations. obviously the elephant in the room here, the primary used blockchain for all of this is Ethereum, and Ethereum is clearly suffering censorship since it has moved into proof of stake. There are clear problems with the platform as it sits. There needs to be an alternative that's proof of work, that's viable, that people can adopt. Will that happen? I don't know. I just don't think that in its current state, it is basically regulation proof, right? Which at a certain point, you need to be able to say, these digital rights that I own with this NFT cannot be infringed upon by a government. If you don't have that in place, if you don't have something that stops government infringement over private property, over private digital property, then it's useless. It's useless at that point, all right? That it just is. So if you're going to have a blockchain like Ethereum that's already suffering from censorship issues, that's already been deemed a security by the SEC, and that is your primary method of validating digital ownership on the blockchain, I just don't see it as being a viable option in the future. Prediction number 4, 2023 may be the year of the CBDC around the world, but there will be no digital dollar in sight. The CBDC arms race will continue as central banks create alliances with commercial banks and technology providers to strengthen their position to test, launch, and execute on their unique CBDC strategies. Yeah, I agree. Oh, it's across the board, right? It will be the year of CBDCs. It's clear that the propaganda machine on a global stage, right, has pushed for this, right? From the collapse of FTX, or from the collapse of Luna all the way through the collapse of FTX, all centralized entities, they take these centralized examples, which is the reason they failed, is because of the centralization surrounding them, right? And they take those as examples and they say, well, that means that we need to regulate the decentralized part, right? It's not the corruption. Don't look behind the curtain, right? Don't see Gary Gensler sitting there having coffee and tea with Sam Bankman-Fried as they plan out the greatest propaganda machine, anti-crypto crypto plan in the world, which is, yeah, sure, admittedly tinfoil hat, but clearly if you have the owner of FTX, the biggest fraud in history, sitting down with the head of the SEC discussing regulation, and then the entire catalyst to accelerated regulation is brought on by fraud within that company, it brings up a pretty strong tinfoil hat, right? That's pretty much, it's like, okay, you know, maybe I do need to protect my brain from this propaganda at this point, right? Like, this is insane. So yes, where does that lead us into moving into 2023? It clearly leads us into CBDCs. You can't handle it. You're not financially responsible. The individual is stupid. You don't know what you're doing. Don't worry. The government will take care of it. They'll allocate the amount of money that they think is what you deserve for the job title that you have. And you must spend it within the certain amount of time window, because saving would actually end up putting your next generation or your generational line in a possible advantage. And we can't have that, because our kids need to stay at the top while your kids stay at the bottom. Our kids need to basically be raised in a manner where all they do is govern with no skill set to attribute to society, while all the rest do the daily work, right? That is where you end up. This is clearly what they're working on in China here recently. That's why I bring up basically this idea of a currency with an expiration date, right? Here's your paycheck for the 30 days, pay all your bills. Oh, you have a little bit left over, you better spend it, because if you don't spend it, it's going to expire, right? This is also a way that you spur on an economy and allow yourself to continue to print your way out of your own debt while burdening the public with continuing to generate this sort of machine of like the economy, right? So this has been talked about before as a possible solution to inflation, right? You end up with a position where the government can basically completely control the flow of goods and services, right? Let's continue on. So with more than 80% of the world's central banks already considering launching a central bank digital currency, 2022 was mostly full of trials and testing. However, the movements by nations across the world to make CBDCs a reality is picking up speed and will become a majority priority in 2023, especially as the race to set a global standard is in sight. Additionally, commercial banks are increasingly interested in the space and will begin or continue to partner with central banks and software vendors to ensure success and mass adoption. While China's digital yuan is far beyond the rest, many countries are making headway. With 2023 goals of rollout a possibility, the Bank of Japan is piloting a rollout with major banks in early 2023. Turkey announced it would launch its CBDC next year, while the ECB intends to start work to develop a rulebook in early 2023 on rolling out a digital euro. The money and payments world is clearly on a path of adopting blockchain more broadly in 2023, with SWIFT even recognizing the need to move in this direction. So clearly, like, CBDCs are happening. You can safely keep the tinfoil hat on for a CBDC actually happening, because they are happening, right? I do hear a lot still in the day-to-day grind talking to normal people. I'll be like, yeah, these CBDCs, they got rolled out like they have rolled out in China is pretty crazy. The UK is talking about it now, and people are like, it'll never happen. I'm like, it's weird to hear people say it'll never happen when it's clearly happening in front of their eyes, right? There's this denial of a CBDC actually being reality when in fact it already is reality. And so to a certain extent, I do like, it's kind of like using that cliche, like, wake up people, CBDCs are here. They're right around the corner for the Western world as well. And they're going to be deployed in over 80% of the governments across the world, right? Across the globe. That's it. Prediction number 5, though. Institutional investments in the digital economy will skyrocket. Institutional investors will make big moves with their big money. We learned in 2022 that beyond crypto's organizational woes, it is closely tied to traditional market movements and the overall economy. I think we kind of debunked that to a certain extent, but, let's continue on. For 2023, the domain's performance will again depend on world economic sentiment. If concerns ease, we may see an uplift in crypto prices as well as investments in the digital asset market. Regardless of the market trends, we will see more traditional blue chip funds, i.e. KKR and Hamilton Lane, together with securitized, tokenize. Yeah, so blue chip funds tokenize. I couldn't say that securitized, but KKR and Hamilton Lane, blue chip funds will tokenize, making them more accessible to a broader sphere of investors. Additionally, more and more large cap market players will move into the tokenization space, i.e. JP Morgan, HSBC, Fidelity, Goldman Sachs, and we'll see a significant uptick in mergers and acquisitions activity as a result. I do think that will happen, yes. However, a caveat to all of this, as mentioned prior, is whether or not legislators and regulators step up to provide some needed stability. 2023 will also be an excellent time to invest in venture capital funds focused on the blockchain ecosystem, not crypto funds. History shows VC funds that raise during recessions outperform funds with different vintages. Plus, it makes a lot of sense because valuations in the blockchain ecosystem are going to be much more reasonable and down to earth over the next couple of years. Now, I will mention this. It's been a long day. Let's think about this from the position of the book Outliers. If you guys haven't read Outliers or gotten the audiobook, I highly recommend it. One of the things that it talks about is kind of like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and the timing of their birth and the timing that they were, had access to mainframe computers, timeshares that allowed them to access mainframe computers from a remote location specifically. These were instrumental in their ability to become extremely proficient at programming at a young age, pretty much before anybody else. Now, while older, more wealthy individuals also had access to these particular technologies, they did not see the future in it because it just seemed like a kid's toy, right? Or it seemed like it may fail. This continued on, of course, into the internet bubble with similar moves from people like Mark Zuckerberg, right? And the timing of their birth and the timing of the internet and their ability to be just young enough to see the opportunity, right? Not old and stubborn, but also just old enough to actually know how to execute and to study these things. So what do you have now? Well, you have a similar opportunity, of course, with cryptocurrency. And now would be, like in general, when they're talking about VC funds raising during a recession, now would be a time for that sort of thing to take place. And the visionaries to basically have their ability to get the next breakout success from a financial perspective. Who will that be? What will the blockchain be? What will it look like at the end when we get there? I have no idea. Like I said before, I do see two distinct paths right now, and I'm not sure which one the world's going to take, right? We have the move towards essentially complete centralization, where you have basically federal governments themselves controlling the entire currency and cutting out banks, meaning essentially it's just completely centralized, or we move down the path of complete decentralization. Either way, chaos ensues to a certain extent, because with any transformation in industry, finance, etc., there's going to be chaos to a certain extent. So in for a bumpy ride, buckling in. Personally, that's how I see it. Also, though, keeping the eyes open for any sort of opportunity, especially as it pertains at a lower level like mine to education surrounding the subject, right? Not so much financial opportunity from the VC perspective, because I wouldn't have the type of capital for that, but from the actual technical perspective and understanding blockchain, understanding essentially the programming languages that are utilized for blockchain, that sort of thing, becoming familiar with the technology, so you can be a nice little blockchain worker bee at the end of the day if needed, right? That's kind of the way this works out, at least from my perspective. There was an interesting turn of events here recently from Paxful. I think it was Paxful, which is a centralized exchange. Let's double check this real quick. Yeah. So, and he tweeted this, but I can't seem to zoom in on it, which is disappointing. But let's read this, because it was kind of funny and kind of backpedaled, right? So Paxful announced this. Ray, the CEO of Paxful, said, and he says, "Hey, this is Ray, the CEO of Paxful, and I'm writing you personally as I have made the decision to remove ETH from our marketplace as of December 22nd. And he says, why? Revenue is nice, but integrity trumps all. He says, let me explain. The biggest problem in the world is economic apartheid. It is the root of all of humanity's pain. I want to see a world where Bitcoin frees billions of people held back by this evil system, especially those unnecessarily harmed living in the global south. This is why I built Paxful. To achieve this mission, it is what truly drives me. And it's from the heart, and this is personal from me. He says, so here are the reasons I'm removing ETH from Paxful. ETH switched from proof of work to proof of stake. Proof of work is the innovation that makes Bitcoin the only honest money there is, whereas proof of stake has rendered ETH essentially a digital form of fiat. ETH is not decentralized. It is controlled by a small group of people, and one day you will need permission to use it. And then ETH had some utility on real use cases such as credit and lending, but it thrives because of tokenization. The tokens that ETH has spawned have been scams that have robbed people of billions. They have stolen valuable momentum away from Bitcoin and cost us years on our mission. In short, our industry is under attack right now, which means our responsibility to protect our users is greater than ever before. We are not perfect, but we'll always do the right thing, even if it's not popular and even if it costs us money. The payoff for all of humanity will be so great that the billions of scammers have stolen, or that the billion scammers have stolen via tokens will seem like pennies in comparison. You have my word as a CEO and human being that I will always put purpose before profit. We're really going to do this, brothers and sisters. This is the way. So obviously, an awesome announcement. I like, from the perspective of like a disenfranchised Ethereum miner and being, pretty hardcore proof of work and getting closer and closer to becoming a Bitcoin maximalist the longer I'm in the industry, the cryptocurrency industry, there's a few things that aren't exactly on the up and up in this particular situation, right? So first of all, completely ignoring, personal responsibility when it comes to the scam coins. And then also not taking into account that essentially stable coins have provided the escape, the much needed escape to the failure of a nation state's monetary system, or the fiat system in the case of Venezuela, as well as Argentina. Here most recently, Venezuela last bull run, Argentina this bull run. Just so you guys know, collapse of the economy. People buy crypto, they protect it, right? Why don't they just buy the US dollar? Well, because of the way it's regulated. The UN basically influences countries to not allow poor people to purchase the US dollar directly, and international banking is locked down to extremely wealthy people. And this puts it into a position where the lower class and even the middle class in these countries are completely crushed, while the rich are not affected and get richer because they're able to essentially capitalize on everything being cheap, right? That's pretty much how this plays out. So I think that it's kind of a miss to ignore stablecoins, and stablecoins are powered by, frankly, Ethereum, right? And to back that up, of course, Andrew did say, is Paxful becoming a Bitcoin only, or will you keep USDT and USDC trades? And Ray said, stables are a must for real use cases, which is why ETH is still on the wallet. Sigh. So, are they fully getting rid of ETH? No. And the thing is like, it's like getting rid of the ETH token, but not getting rid of the Ethereum blockchain. And while this movement sounds good and nice and pretty and wrapped up in a bow, and it sounds, principled, it ticks all of the Bitcoin maxi check boxes, right? It does all that. But does it really result into really result into the end goal here? And the answer to that is actually no, right? Unfortunately, just the answer to that is no. That being said, there is some really cool stuff, more cool stuff being done on Web3, which obviously will probably be powered by Ethereum for the most part. The Global Chess Authority is looking to onboard the game's 500 million players into Web3 with the new partnership. This is really cool. So, if you guys don't know, I've been getting into chess a lot lately because my son, we got him into chess club in kinder, and then he's been doing chess club in first grade. He had his first tournament, and in first grade, he was actually like top 20 out of like 80 kids, and it was against second graders. He only lost to second graders, which was crazy. and he actually did do get checkmate, which is crazy too. So I'm super proud of him because usually kids his age at 6 years old in first grade do not checkmate anybody. So he did incredibly well, so we've been playing a lot of chess, and seeing this integration is cool. Now, the sports governing body announced Friday it is partnering with the Avalanche blockchain to bring its competitions into Web3. The partnership will create operational efficiencies for players and federations and improve game integrity, according to a press release, such as publishing tournament data and player rankings on-chain, as well as AVAX-hosted tournament prize pools. The tie-up also places Ava Labs, the builders behind the Avalanche blockchain, and Core, a self-custody crypto wallet, as featured sponsors at physical chess tournaments around the world, including the World Chess Championship and Chess Olympiad. Quote, chess is a unique sport, and this cooperation will allow us to unify our community and strengthen the ties between players, clubs, federations, and FIDE. Emil Satovsky, FIDE, I'll say, I don't know how to pronounce, I'll be honest. I should. CEO said in a statement, obviously it stands for something, but oh, I'm sorry for the yawns today, guys. I've been up since like 5 in the morning. I didn't get a lot of sleep. So the Web3 integrations follow alongside the chess world's gradual embrace of digital mediums. The Federation says more than 100 million people play online chess regularly and compete in over 25 million virtual chess matches each day. Despite mainstream excitement for Web3 and NFTs declining in recent months, federations like the FIDE still see potential in the industry to grow its sport. The governing body of table tennis launched a similar Web3 campaign last August. The collaboration between FIDE and AVAX, which is the Avalanche, also isn't the first time that chess has castled with crypto. Chess legend Garry Kasparov launched his first collection of NFTs earlier this month, and play-to-earn chess games such as MetaChess have been popular for much of the past year, which MetaChess is pretty cool, but to be completely honest with you guys, I am on chess.com, but maybe if you guys want, we'll check this out in the after party, which you can check out, of course, by checking the pinned comment in the live chat on YouTube. There we go. Whew. We can chat. We can talk. We always have more. Drink some more root beer, boys. All right. Consensus Magazine, ransomware payouts declined in 2022. Crystal Blockchain, we're actually going to cover this in the next show. The next big one, of course, is the DAGKnight Protocol Community Crowdfund is live right now. It's hit 44% of its total goal, which is 30.9 million out of 70 million Caspa needed. And they say we are excited to announce the opening of a pool to raise funds for implementation of the DAGKnight protocol. And they provide the address. You can see, of course, the current balance on the Block Explorer if you like. And you can see which wallets have donated and so on, if you would like. You could also mine to this address if you would like, that sort of thing. So what is it doing? Well, DAGKnight is a new consensus protocol that achieves responsiveness, a world first. It reacts to the actual network delay, unlike every other coin, including their current GhostDAG protocol. Incredibly, it retains a 50% Byzantine tolerance, so it is faster and more secure than GhostDAG. In a nutshell, DAGKnight will make Caspa 1. Require less confirmations to be provably secure, and 2. Intrinsically scale as the internet speeds increase. Basically, as the internet gets faster over the next decades with more fiber optic cables, etc., Caspa will scale with this without any hard fork interventions. This will make our coin literally the ultimate layer 1 proof of work coin in existence. Why 70 million? It is unreasonable to expect a senior software engineer and contributor to work a short-term horizon for the same compensation they would receive in a permanent position, which would include benefits, etc. This is something within crypto that I feel is rightfully contentious. And that is essentially this idea that devs of cryptocurrencies need to be paid. And this is obviously because the idea behind cryptocurrency from a principled standpoint, from a fundamental standpoint, is like you look at the holy grail there of Bitcoin, which was, created and developed and dispersed out to the world without any ego attached. And so I had to be careful here because people obviously misinterpret the word ego. When I use the word ego, I mean an individual's caring of self, right? Or their image or whatever it may be, right? So when you say, like, when you look at most cryptos, what I usually will say is like, well, it has a people problem. And to be fair, every single crypto pretty much outside of like Bitcoin and Dogecoin all have a people problem, which means they inevitably have an ego problem, which can turn into a negative, for a coin pretty fast because you're dependent on an individual for the development and so on of a particular currency that you're invested in, which really starts to kind of turn it into a security as well. Now, does that mean I'm calling Caspa a security? No. Does it mean that from the perspective of the SEC, could it be deemed security if you are basically purchasing it in hopes that somebody else is completing the work? Well, it could be considered that, especially if you read why the donation of 70 million is being made, which is being made so that somebody works on it. It is, to a certain extent, a gray area that I think is questionable in general across all cryptocurrencies. Does this put Caspa in a negative position in comparison to everything else? No. The only one that it puts it below is like obviously Bitcoin, right? And we can throw Dogecoin in there as well. So we'll put, from a fundamental perspective, Bitcoin is the holy grail. Dogecoin happened by accident, and then everything else, right? And so it's like, yes, obviously you want people to be compensated for the work they do. But if we are looking at really changing a monetary system, why are we still participating by the rules of the previous monetary system? Right? It just brings up that kind of oddity, in my humble opinion. And from a philosophical debate, I think you could sit here all day long and bounce back and forth. I'm not saying that people don't deserve to get paid. I'm not saying that anything is inherently wrong with it or anything like that. Just that these are the arguments that are presented, and I think that it is completely valid to make those arguments against the majority of cryptocurrencies, including Caspa, right? But not exclusive to Caspa, which is extremely important because I know it's going to just make its way to Caspa Discord, and there's going to be some Caspa fanboys that are like, oh, I'm unsubbing again. You know what, guys? Get over yourselves. Like, seriously, it's old, dude. Like, listen to what I say. Don't take it out of context. Understand what I'm explaining to you from a Bitcoin maximalist perspective, okay? So, consider we are funding two of the most incredibly gifted and professional crypto minds of the current decade, already intimately versed and fluent with all of the intricate components of Caspa, working nearly 1 year full-time, implementing the paramount version of the consensus protocol. Normally, funding this from a VC would require millions of USD. Can you feel how extremely bullish it is that we are asking to be paid in Caspa and not Bitcoin or USDC, which I think is a fair point. How much to donate? The requested amount is 0.5% of the total current supply. Fortunately, not everyone will donate, or unfortunately, for many reasons. The most common would be that survival instinct we have all come to know as greed. It's counterintuitive to get more by giving some away. Yeah, but like, it's silly to make that argument as well. So it's like we're going to make the greed argument to get you to give us more, right? This is like when, I mean, it's basically like the equivalent of the church asking you to tithe, right? It's like, it's a little silly. It's like, you should be this altruistic person, but we're going to take your money. Like, I don't like the manipulative like language when people do it like that. Like, I get where the point's coming from, but you got to understand, like, it's not going to help in general. I don't think this is the way they should have been worded at all. Next time, call me for some consulting. It's okay. Just ask any squirrel who is out collecting nuts. But in the case of Caspa, we are fortunate that the nuts don't stay nuts. Thanks to software, they can change. Imagine you have 50 regular cars and you have an opportunity to give one car away, which will make the 49 you have left in turn into race cars. Now, who would say no to that? Actually, race cars are extremely unreliable. And so if you gave away one reliable car for 49 race cars that blew up after one pass at the quarter mile, then they're fucking worthless. Once again, a terrible argument. So you guys really should come on. I'd rather have one car that will drive for 365 days than 49 cars that will each drive for one day. Okay? Oh my God. All right, so they'd like to draw special attention to the fact that if we want to collect 0.5% of the current supply, each one of Caspa holders should donate 0.5% of what they currently have. But since not everyone will donate, each donor is kindly asked to consider donating 1 to 2% of his possessions. For those who would prefer USDT donations, we still have the following USDT addresses. All funds collected there are to be used to market by Caspa ASAP, with the following transfer to the DK fund. And they have their Ethereum address, their TRC20, and their BEP Binance address all there. It's linked down in the description below if you do want to consider to donate, of course, to Caspa and to the developers to support them. Do I agree with their final arguments here on how much you should donate? No, I think they're very, very poorly written and formed, unfortunately. Do I think that DAGKnight is extremely interesting and a good move forward for Caspa? Yes, I do. Do I think 70 million Caspa is reasonable for developer pay? Sure, but do I have questions about, what happened to the original 3% that was like funded from the miners that went through all that? Yes, I'm like, I guess to a certain extent you could blow through that in a year pretty easily. There's still like, what happened? Why did the company also get 8 million and then completely dissolve? Where did that money go? That, like, there's just Caspa is the most exciting thing that is currently happening within cryptocurrency for this bear market. And that means that it needs to be more heavily scrutinized than anything else currently out. Okay? We're not going to end up in a position like, this is the same position you end up in, or I end up in, with every single project that I talk about, and I bring it to the attention of everybody. I talk about it, I talk about what's awesome, and then when there are things that are questionable, I'm like, that's questionable, and everybody gets their panties in a fucking wad. Unwad your panties. Understand that I think that Caspa has the chance to do something extremely special, and to scrutinize it is to support it. All right. Let's go ahead and talk about some more stuff here. Blockware customer accuses Bitcoin mining firm of fraud. The lawsuit seeks at least $250,000 of damages. Bitcoin mining equipment and hosting provider Blockware Solutions was accused by a customer in a lawsuit of breach of contract, negligence, or deceptive trade practices and fraud. The case filed in U.S. federal court in the Northern District of Illinois on December 17th centers around an allegation that Blockware sold FAES and Company, or FaZe and Company, I think, 50 mining rigs for $525,000. They said in the lawsuit, quote, Blockware did not actually own or operate a facility to host the miners and was not capable of doing so reliably. Also, the facilities owned by third parties that Blockware could tap didn't have reliable power, resulting in subpar service, according to the suit. As a result, FaZe miners under Blockware's management and control have experienced prolonged downtime and inoperability due to lack of power, resulting in significant loss of revenue, FaZe argued. FaZe said it had suffered at least $250,000 of damages. London-based FaZe said it ordered the machines to be delivered and hosted in Blockware's own facilities in January, when Bitcoin mining was highly profitable amid a bull market. The rigs only came online in April, FaZe said. The mining machines were running with 70% uptime on average as of October, as opposed to the advertised 100%, FaZe said. Operational issues, according to FaZe, started as soon as the machines were online, which eventually became non-operational in October. Prior to the machines going offline, Blockware was claiming 100% uptime on a 90-day status page, including for a facility in Pennsylvania where FaZe rigs were located, often not working, according to the lawsuit. In response, Blockware CEO Masson Japp said, quote, we disagree with all statements and claims made by Christian FaZe. He attempted to coerce us to settle with him, and we believe we owe him $0. In fact, we will be countersuing him for defamation, among other stipulations. We had a signed non-disclosure agreement on file. We have a very strong case. His filing has baseless false claims, and after filing, he still offered to drop the case if we settled. Once again, coercion. Oh, man. We believe the main reason for filing was the value of his rigs dropped in price, and he has harassed us with his personal threats weekly via text and other communications until fulfilling the lawsuit. We are confident it will be tossed out from the court. We have honestly served this industry for over 5.5 years, and this has been the first lawsuit filed against us. So many things to really unpack here for me personally, right? So if you guys aren't aware, like I did extremely well on YouTube as well as extremely well in mining. The thing that I did and decided to do very early on was not expand with the revenue or the investment of other individuals. While that means that I didn't make as much money, and it also means that I have to work a day job through the bear market and that sort of thing, what it also means is I don't have to deal with this BS. I own all of my equipment, and I purchased it outside of a bull run, so it didn't cost me that much. And yes, I made some mistakes here and there, but those mistakes are mine solely. I can accept the responsibility for it, and I don't have to answer to anybody else in general. The fact of the matter is, like, Blockware is being devoid of empathy in this particular situation. In addition to that, they prey on individuals with the bull run. Hardware resellers, as well as the initial manufacturers like Bitmain, right? and like What's Miner, and then of course the resellers, even going through ones like the sponsors for this channel, right? Like BT Miners. What you will see is a position in a bull run where the price of the unit is 600% of over whatever like manufacturing or traditional retail cost is, right? And then you get to a bear market and you start to realize true cost of these machines as they go as low as they possibly can, as close to the building, as close to the profit margins as they can. And you start to say that, like, obviously you didn't have to increase your prices to that extent, right? Putting undue pressure on individuals and preying on their, basically on their lack of knowledge. That's what you're doing in this particular case. So I can see individuals like FaZe getting extremely upset. And then if any of the accusations are true, and they have not maintained 100% uptime, then of course you're going to be extra upset surrounding this. Now, when you are in a financially compromised position, you are also probably wanting to settle out of court so that you do not have as many lawyer fees, right? This is par for the course. Unfortunately, like, there will not be much empathy in a bear market in the crypto industry, right? Blockware is at least the second retail-facing mining company to be accused of operational problems this year. In July, both the CEO and chief financial officer of Compass Mining resigned following a series of setbacks and disappointments, such as delays in deploying machines, and several thousand rigs being stranded in Russia following sanctions on its hosting partner in that country. Meanwhile, major industrial-scale miners such as Compute North and Core Scientific have found themselves in bankruptcy proceedings, squeezed between high energy prices and low Bitcoin prices, along with basically just, frankly, being too greedy and buying too many mining rigs at too high of a price. This is kind of the funny thing that happens here with the cycle that continues to happen. It's almost as if Satoshi knew this would happen, which is extremely interesting if you start to get into that kind of like economic discussion where there's economies of scale, right? So how do you break down economies of scale to ensure that you don't have a situation where the rich get richer and the poor get poorer? Well, you could have some sort of emission schedule that completely jacks with it, right? And to a certain extent, it does appear that Bitcoin does this. It's kind of funny. Whether it's by design, I don't think so. I do think it's probably by and large an accident, right? But it is funny to see. To a certain extent, right? It's almost like you start to see the failure of economies of scale due to the greed, right? Now, speaking of greed, we go back to that kind of argument for supporting DAGKnight, and then you're like, if you support a project like that, do they lean more into the greed, the VC funding and stuff like that, or do they lean more towards Satoshi's vision, right? It's kind of funny. It's just like some food for thought for you guys. But there is, apparently this article is locked down, but we'll get into this too. It was speaking of the Core Scientific, and Core Scientific is filing for bankruptcy. So Bitcoin miner Core Scientific files for bankruptcy and expects support from some debt holders. The publicly traded miner expects support from some of the holders of its convertible notes in a restructuring deal. So they will be restructuring. Core Scientific, one of the largest Bitcoin miners by computing power, filed for bankruptcy protection on Wednesday and reached a deal with some of its lenders to restructure its debt. The company filed for Chapter 11 at Southern District of Texas Bankruptcy Court as crypto winter continues to take its toll on the industry. The miner's estimated liabilities are between $1 billion and $10 billion. That's quite the gap, according to the filing. It has around 1,000 to 5,000 creditors, with the largest unsecured claim coming from investment bank B. Riley. The miner's estimated assets are between $1 billion and $10 billion, according to the filing. At the end of the third quarter, Core Scientific's assets stood at $1.4 billion, whereas its liabilities were at about $1.3 billion, according to its earnings report. The bankruptcy of Core Scientific, which accounts for about 10% of the computing power on the Bitcoin network, operating 143,000 mining rigs and hosting another 100,000, is the biggest one yet and is set to send shockwaves in an already crumbling industry. Core Scientific reached an agreement with some of its creditors in what appears to be a prepackaged bankruptcy. In a prepackaged bankruptcy, the debtor reaches some sort of agreement with its debtee before officially filing for bankruptcy. The miner expects support from some of its convertible note holders in the form of 2 debtor-in-possession facilities, totaling up to $75 million, Core Scientific said in a press release. This support will help it go through the bankruptcy process, which it intends to do swiftly in the press release, or that's what the press release said. The miner had $544 million in convertible notes outstanding at the end of the third quarter. Existing convertible note holders will equitize their debt into a significant majority of the common stock of the reorganized company, end quote, the mining firm said. Other holders of general unsecured claims and existing common shareholders will also receive meaningful recoveries in the form of reorganized common stock and warrants under the restructuring deal. The company first warned of the risk of bankruptcy in late October, and it said it wouldn't be paying some of its loan installments, sending its shares plummeting 80% on the NASDAQ. In November, it reiterated that it may run out of money by the end of the year. Last week, investment bank B. Riley proposed a $72 million financing plan, including $40 million of financing immediately and with zero contingencies. However, the rest of the funding would be made available once Bitcoin hit 18,500. Core Scientific has $42 million outstanding to the bank. Instead, Core Scientific expects to seal a deal with a group representing more than 50% of the holders of its convertible notes that will grant its $56 million in a DIP facility. The note holders have agreed to syndicate up to $19 million in new money DIP facility loans to all holders of convertible notes, the Wednesday press release said. These funds, along with ongoing cash generated from operations, are anticipated to provide necessary financing to FQ8. What? I don't know. I actually don't know this word. Let's go look it up. I don't know how to pronounce it. Effectuate. That makes a lot of sense. The plan restructuring. Facilitate the emergence from Chapter 11 and cover the fees and expenses of legal and financial advisors, the miner said. Core Scientific's operations remain significantly cash flow positive and on a debt-free basis, the press release said. So that's pretty good. Core Scientific is one of the several miners struggling to keep afloat as rising energy prices increase costs. While stubbornly low Bitcoin prices slash revenue, Compute North, another major firm in the space, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in late September. Iris Energy had to unplug about 72% of its computing power that was tied to just over $100 million of loans that it defaulted on. The loans were held by special purpose non-recourse vehicles. In November, Argo Blockchain's deal to sell $27 million of equity to fund operations fell through, and the company was subsequently downgraded by 2 analysts. Greenridge Generation on Tuesday announced a debt restructuring deal with its lender NYDIG, but could still run out of cash in 2 months if it doesn't secure additional funding. Core Scientific has also been affected by the bankruptcy of lender Celsius Networks mining arm, one of its biggest clients, and lender to BlockFi, to which it owes $54 million, which is hilarious because obviously that entire thing is just going down the drain extremely quickly. Celsius Mining filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in July and in September sued Core Scientific, claiming it violated automatic stay terms. Core Scientific claims Celsius owes it $5.2 million as of September 30th. BlockFi filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in late November, one of the many victims of crypto exchange FTX's implosion. No, we are not going to allow that narrative. I'm sorry. BlockFi's failure came way before FTX. They were bailed out by FTX, and then FTX failed. BlockFi was bailed out. They were a failure long before FTX. There is no world in which you should basically move that blame off of BlockFi themselves. And you should be extremely cautious surrounding anybody that moves from BlockFi to another cryptocurrency project. Okay? Don't like it when they frame it like that. It's deceptive. Core Scientific was running 243,000 machines in its facilities as of the end of October, split between 14.4 exahash a second of Bitcoin self-mining hash rate and 10 exahash a second of hosted machines for other firms, according to the filing. That's about 10% of the global hash rate, which stands at around 243 exahash a second as of writing. The company went public in January 20. After January of 2020, after merging with Power and Digital Infrastructure Acquisition in a special purpose acquisition company transaction, shares of Core Scientific were down around 27% at 15 cents a share during pre-market strategy. So there you go, guys. Pretty much, like I said, the miners are starting to capitulate, fail. There's going to be a lot of mergers and acquisitions. It's kind of been like the story for a while. So, let's talk about what I'm mining, because we promised that for you guys here on YouTube. So I did turn on my rigs, or a lot of them, because it's cold. So I'm warming up the mining farm. And drinking soda makes me gassy. I got a burp. There we go. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. You ready? We're mining a mix of Radiant on our NVIDIA GPUs, or 3000 series GPUs, I should say, and mining Mineolium. I can't really pronounce it. Mineonlium. With the rest of the GPUs, and we were doing that solo. I did have a node, but then I had some infrastructure issues. We'll be getting it fixed and probably building out a node for you guys and doing the guide for you on that if I can find the time. Obviously, the day job's taking priority right now, but we are mining it solo. There's no real price really at this point. That is why I'm mining it. Is it another Caspa? No. But there are some interesting things happening with it, specifically surrounding some developments that we'll talk about over on locals. But things that have been fixed, for example, is references to Ethereum on the network as opposed to actually MO have been corrected. There's active development. While it is slow, there is active development and there's stuff being done. So I was like, while we warm up, we will just go ahead and hit this and get it done. Keep our pipes warm out there, that sort of thing. And then we'll be shutting off probably as soon as it warms up, which will be early next week. So that's what I'm mining right now. And then obviously the Radiant, which is pretty easy as well. So there you go. I wanted to basically let you guys be aware of that. So let's talk about hash rate. All right. So Ethereum Classic is at 129 terahash a second. It's up 1.5% over the past 7 days, and obviously down quite a bit on the amount of hash. We got ETH Proof of Work up 0.74% over the past 7 days, and is actually up in hash rate to 20 terahash a second on the network. And then there is the Ethereum Fair, which is up 124% over the past 7 days. Kind of getting some pump on that Justin Sun coin there for you guys. And it is at 2.68 terahash a second. Now, I love how my autocomplete is G203, BitBoy Crypto, and Son of a Tech. I don't know why they autocomplete on this right now. So Bitcoin, the big daddy, obviously. We want to take a look at it. Up 1.13% over the past 7 days, and a pretty significant drop in hash rate, right? Coming down off of like that 280 exahash a second all the way down to 200 exahash a second. Now's the time to mine Bitcoin. Well, we got like a week before the difficulty adjusts? Yeah, about a week. Is it like a week on Bitcoin? I think it's like a week, something like that. But there you go. Other than that, let's take a look at Ergo, which is down 5%, 4.91% over the past 7 days, and sitting still around like that 30 terahash a second on the network. Caspa is right behind it. We're looking at 304 terahash a second on the network, and it's down 2% over the past 7 days. And we got Flux. Dun, 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 dun. Flux is up 6% over the past 7 days, and is sitting at 5.46 mega solutions a second. Not looking too shabby right now. Obviously, some people talking about it in chat, so definitely something you want to take a look at. Radiant, it's down almost 2% and sitting at 64 terahash a second on the network. And then I believe, since we're here, we will look at Minoleum, but it's not really going to show you much because there's basically only 3 pools and no price chart for you. So there you go. Now, other than that, what to mine's pretty much going to tell you nothing's profitable, right? So you got to do calculations outside of what to mine. You got to work on overclocks, underclocks, all that, right? Like Radiant shows like losing 2 cents a day at 10 cents a kilowatt hour. It is profitable if you tune it in, right? So you can get on Radiant better hash rate. Let's just take a look. An example, 1.2 gigahash a second at 150 watts. Let's go ahead and look. 1.2 at 150 watts. Okay, because I do. Oh, well, not a good example. Another thing we'll be doing over on locals is we apparently do not have the overclocks assigned. So, or do we? Actually looks like we do. So did they update Radiant as well? Or Caspa? They didn't update Caspa. They updated Radiant. So Radiant's accurate. Caspa's not. All right, we'll have to do some more research on this and get you guys final answers. All right, so ASIC miner profitability. I can't expose my source, but I do believe the KA3 is basically rumored to be delayed. K7s will be on time in January, I think it was. Anyways, Antminer L7s are at 267 a day on Digibyte. Obviously, probably does better on... Why? That's crazy. What is it really doing on Doge? 1272 merge mining Digibyte and Doge right now. Digibyte really pumping. Antminer D7 looking pretty good too. Doing okay on Dash. Then we got the Gold Shell HS3. Just so you guys know, there was an announcement from, of course, Bitmain with a new handshake miner that is basically 450% better than the Gold Shell HS3. So while it's profitable right now, I'd be extremely cautious around it. The iPolo V1 is working on that DAE, which I have yet to look into. Of course, that is going to be Ethereum, and it does look like Ethereum Fair is becoming profitable as well, which is interesting because of that recent pump that we just talked about earlier that we saw. So Ethereum Fair is going to be an interesting one. Other than that, Antminer S19 Pro is still going to be negative, I think. Yeah, negative, unfortunately, at 10 cents a kilowatt hour. Let's get into questions and answers for the day. I appreciate each and every one of y'all. Remember, super chats are never required, always appreciated. First to be read because they're the easiest to read. In addition to that, we will still be doing an after party talking about things that YouTube doesn't like us to talk about, including but not limited to unvaccinated versus vaccinated deaths in COVID, as well as we will be talking about the meta chess. We'll also be talking about ransomware. Payouts declined. We're also going to be talking about, most importantly, I think, the US dollar and how everybody else in the world is searching for a new reserve currency as we speak. So, just tag at Son of a Tech if you have a question. We'll get into it. We got about 10 minutes and then we're going to be, or 9 minutes really at this point, and then we're going to be moving over to locals. You can check out the pinned comment or pinned chat in the live chat. So Ravenboy Crypto says, at Son of a Tech, do you think with all the issues Ergo had this fall that it will still be a good coin to hold next bull run? I'm extremely suspicious at the amount of control Charles Hoskinson has over Ergo. And I have too much tinfoil hat surrounding Ergo and what's going on in the community. Once again, the biggest problem with Ergo is that it has a people problem. And the devs definitely have an ego problem. And a majority of the community is willing to support unethical and immoral decisions based off of the pure fact that other people make the same immoral and unethical decisions. So it's like rape and murder because other people rape and murder, and obviously it's not to that extent, but you know, I don't think that a project that won't adhere to its own manifesto is one that I have much respect for. So I'm not really worried about the price of it because I don't really care to participate in it anymore. That's my 2 cents. Let's see. So Babelfish says, as Son of a Tech, my whole farm is 68.5 gigahash a second at 7,500 watts. Congrats, good sir. Carl says, as Son of a Tech, I ordered 2 iPolo G1 minis. Mistake or no? I don't do confirmation bias, my friend. Sorry. Kyle Rosa says, as Son of a Tech, NVIDIA Blackwell RTX 50. I haven't looked into it. Mind Something says, as Son of a Tech, do you think it's possible DAGKnight is done and they are just squeezing some donations out of us? No. I think it's the bear market and people are looking for money. You know, if it was everybody's hurting, so it's not surprising to see like I don't mind like the fundraising stuff. Like I said, like in the case of Caspa, it's just an oddity, right? Like, or not an oddity. It's common, but it is like a a red flag that I would pay attention to, right? Like, why is it, what does this lead to? That sort of thing, right? And I really didn't like the way it was written. Felt like it had too many fallacies in it. Felt like I was at church having the preacher yell at me to give him his money. Well, I drive like a beat up old Honda Accord and he's driving around a Escalade. You know what I mean? D, thanks for the $20 super chat. How are you doing today? And then they always tell you it's for the greater good, my man. How is Ergo centralized? I never said it was centralized. Nano says it's centralized, I suppose. Devs do not make all the decisions because the voting is done with mining. However, in the particular case that I have an issue with Ergo is specifically the decision to accept and utilize the Ethereum Classic Twitter and repurpose it for Ergo. I also think that when there was an issue brought to their attention that could have started voting on way before migration off of Ethereum, they could have admitted that there was an issue and moved off of it earlier and probably been in a much better position now than they currently are. Ryan Casper says, Asymptotic, how do you feel about building a farm with iPolo, Jazzminer, ETH, and ETC miners? I don't know. I don't really have a feeling either way. I don't think I would do it. Personally. Amigas PC says all the token is pre-minted to a smart contract which can be controlled by the devs. That is correct. Theoretically can be controlled by the devs. Has not been controlled by the devs, to be clear. Has been voted on via mining, right? That being said, the monetary policy can be manipulated, has been manipulated historically, and appears to not be set in a manner that was well thought out, right? So, because we talked about this before, where once they had to do the reemission, it's like you want me to believe you're really good developer, but then you have basic mathematical and economic issues with the coin. I guess to a certain extent, all blockchains have that same issue, though. But then the way they do the reemission is very weird, right? So, I don't know. Mind Something says, thoughts on Nexa? Really, I haven't had time to do anything but think about CentOS and databases and real world shit instead of crypto. So I don't really, I haven't formed an opinion on Nexa yet. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. Nano NXPC says, outside of a tech, do you feel that mining votes is enough to qualify as decentralized versus Bitcoin node updates? I mean, you're talking about node updates to support it, right? So when I say mining, it really is still, you update the node, right? To whatever the vote is going to be. That's how the votes have always gone with Ergo. The only caveat to that was the tokenized voting on an individual miner basis that GetBlock did, which is really cool and I think very innovative. So, I think there's always good actors and innovations within every project, but you should be extremely careful surrounding all projects, right? So you got to be careful, right? I don't know. Yeah, GetBlock is out of business. We talked about that last week. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please head on over to Locals, or if you prefer, you can go on over to the Rumble live stream. And we'll continue the show over there after a brief 10-minute break. So you can check it, the Locals page as well, out in the main page. And if you don't like getting political, you know, do yourself a favor and just don't show up. If you can discuss things reasonably without name calling, etc., come on over and let's have a good time. Brandon Higgins with the $10 super chat before we go. Thank you, good sir. Says, Ask Son of a Tech, have you heard anything strange with invalid shares with Mini-Z Miner since the newest HiveOS update? No, I have not. He does say that he came home today with a 60% ratio, even when he rolled back the update that was working fine before. Sorry, unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you there. We are going to continue, like I said, over on another platform, though. So I hope to see you guys over there. And we'll get started right now. I'll see you next Tuesday. Check.